Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show, 10,000 Heroes. So this is a new kind of episode for the podcast. I'm calling this a feedback episode. And the idea is to get a listener or previous guest take on something that's come out, just to add a little more depth to the dialogue. And I'm really excited about this first one because it's feedback on the first Solocast that I did about the goal of the Teal Society and what that means. And this feedback is from Jeff Salzman, previous guest from episode 41, who's an expert in integral philosophy, which is the boring philosophy I told you behind the Teal Society, and thus in this whole terminology around the Teal Society. So I had my attempt to explain the jargon without using more jargon, and I invite Jeff to grill me on how bad a job I did. And so in this episode, which will be really short, I'm just playing for him a minute or so excerpt of that other Solocast. So if you didn't hear it, you can now, and if you did, it's just a minute, it's just a little bit of review. And then live getting his take. So it was super scary for me to do this, but he was very, very gracious and very kind with me. He destroys me a little bit, but not too much. You'll see. So we'll get Jeff's take on the Teal Society thing, and then we're going to just try this pattern going forward this quarter. Again, doing a lot of experiments, throwing a lot of whole wheat pasta against the wall. We've got 13 interviews, hopefully feedback episode like this every week. Again, those solo casts and the debrief conversations with Nate. And we'll just see what works and see what you're interested in. So please let us know. All right, let's check it out. Before we begin this episode, I want to put in a quick word from our sponsor, me. We got the name for this podcast from the mission of Momentum Lab, our coaching program. We are both incubating the next generation of heroes and the next step in the evolution of consciousness. If you listen to the show, you're already a part of that process. Thank you. So if you haven't already, sign up for the newsletter to get insights, tools, and inspiration on living a purposeful, visionary, and impactful life. And if it ever dawns on you that that's easier to do with a community of excellence urging you on, that it can make the difference in you achieving your personal goals, check out Momentum Lab. Okay, back to the show.
Yeah.
All right. So it really brought it back to the ultimate reason for all of my public work at this point is doing my part in helping to usher in the Teal Society. So there, I just hit you with a major piece of jargon that now I have to explain, which is the Teal Society. And I'm not going to get into all of the philosophical background because it's just long and probably mostly boring. But the best way I can explain it is that the Teal Society is a society we live in when we understand the real value in everybody's perspective. So now I have to get into a little bit of background because there's a difference between that and moral relativism, which is like, so then I go through this whole explaining how it's not moral relativism. That I don't know if you want to hear that part or not.
Yep, play it.
Yeah, okay. Like the popular world, as in the postmodern black hole of moral relativism. So I want to distinguish that. So we're going to go on a little kind of intellectual history jaunt here. And we're going to go way back to when people had 100% confidence that their point of view was the right point of view. And, many people, maybe billions of people, still feel that way now, but I think it's not the majority as a society. As human societies, we've kind of moved mostly out of that center. So that we'd call moral absolutism. It's like, my way is the right way. It's what I learned. It's right. I mean, when I was wandering around India for years, you always met people like that many people really, where it's just like, wow, you have something different than I do for breakfast every day. That's bizarre, and just like really curious, being like, how do you survive like that? And I guess I still kind of feel that way when I see people eating boxed cereals, and I've got my granola. So it's not like we've totally done away with that. But there's that concept. And then the next kind of concept that came along was like, oh man, there's just so many different perspectives out there. We want to appreciate them. And there was this like little jaunt we did into like, oh, maybe they're all equally valid. And that's the whole moral relativism world, which is not what I'm advertising. What I'm saying as the Teal Society is that every perspective we're exposed to, we can imbibe, we can drink a little bit of it and learn from it and see how it adds to our life, rather than seeing it as the opposition or the adversary or that they're just totally capital W wrong, where they might be lowercase wrong, or they might be incorrect, but just morally existentially wrong, like you are my enemy. To move beyond that and be like, oh, you have a totally different perspective on this, informed by your training, your life experiences, the weird propaganda you're listening to. What's valuable about that for me? What's an intellectual gap or an emotional gap that I can learn from? And to me, that amount of empathy is ultimately what we need to get beyond all of these fissures that we see in our society right now. So that's what I mean when I say the Teal Society. And it's basically a more precise and organized version of the hippie peace and love dream that we all have. People from all walks of life and all political persuasions. At the end, you get them, you give them a little bit of wine and they're like, yeah, it's all love. We're just trying to figure out how to make that work. Whether they're working for ICE or ISIS or whatever else it is, at the root, I haven't met people that say that it's not about that for them, no matter what they're doing in life. So, okay. All right, Jeff, slam me. body slam me.
Wow. First of all, I just want to say, wow, what a beautiful transmission and what a beautiful transmitter you are. So, wow, I'm feeling lit up. I'm feeling that's good. I mean, you can't, that's, you either got that or you don't, and you do. That's fantastic. What I would say about what you had to say is that I would say that it's pretty much exactly right. And it's a good on-ramp for people to understand the developmental / integral view that, as you said, is philosophically complex, to the degree that you want to go there. But what you said at the very beginning, that the kind of back pocket definition of integral theory, or the Teal Society, is a society where you understand the value in everybody's perspective. And that's a mouthful, because first of all, you're appreciating that everybody has a different perspective, and there's sort of groups of perspectives that you can see culturally. And I think where the center of gravity of the culture is now, maybe the slightly leading edge of it, is that we want to tolerate everybody's perspectives. But valuing everybody's perspective is another step, big step. So you're not only saying, I can live with you, you stupid idiot, I guess, if we don't have to spend too much time together, please, to actually, what is it that you have that I don't, maybe, and you and I were talking earlier about, people who live in mono perspectives. They have one perspective. You mentioned it on the excerpt you just played. And so one example would be fundamentalist religious people, people who can't understand why you had something else for breakfast than they did. They're so culturally embedded. So what is it about that, that you can value, actually, not just tolerate? And so what is it that they actually have? And I would say, and I would argue for you to say this, is that what they have, first of all, is a deep liquid embeddedness with other people. That we don't have, the modern world got rid of that. And the integral wants to bring that back. The second thing I would say is that they live in an enchanted world where what they think and what they do means something in a transcendent dimension. God cares. Now, with modernity, mythic gods gone, but it's the old baby bathwater thing. There is something about knowing that you live in an enchanted world, and to me, the enchanted story now is evolution itself. That, 13.8 billion years ago, something blew out of nothing and have continued to complexify into us. That's, if there's not, religion in there somewhere, you know what I mean? So that's the part you value. what, and modern people don't have that, typically.
Yeah.
So I would make that comment. You talk about moral relativism. When you have so many perspectives, you have moral relativism. And that's true. That's a perspectival madness of the postmodern world that Ken Wilber talks about. And this is where, you're going to get into more advanced and difficult territory, because here you want to talk about stages of development. And of course, the leading edge of our culture right now, to the degree that they're postmodern, and they are many, and they are anti-hierarchical. It's just a hard sell. But that's one of the ways that we can rank. I don't want to say we want to rank the value, because every person who has ever lived at any age and any condition is 100% valuable. There's nobody more or less valuable. But there are ideas and customs and ways of worldviews that have evolved over time that have become bigger in terms of who they include inside their circle of moral consideration. We can say that it's better to include more people and more things than it is to do fewer things. And in these earlier stages of development and earlier stages of human history, it was I would have lasted about 15 minutes. Okay. Just the violence and it's hard for us to imagine the mono perspective that is, held so strongly in these earlier stages, and how, humanity has worked its ass off at great cost to expand that into what we have now, which is where all perspectives are online. We still have, so here I might have a slight different take on one thing you said. I think that you said that these days most people have more than one perspective, and it depends on how you want to slice and dice that. But I think even in our society, so in our culture right now, we have the three big worldviews in contention: postmodernity, modernity, and traditionalism. Okay. And most people, their heart's in one of them or the other. And they really have, they can live in the second and be functional in the second. So a lot of people, most people, here's where I would agree that most people are traditional modern or modern postmodern. When you start getting into where you can actually inhabit all three of those, then you're banging into teal territory, because they're not easy. Postmodernity and traditionalism, oh man, they really hate each other. Mm-hmm. And they bring very precious gifts. But what they don't bring is the ability to see the other, and include them in their circle of moral consideration. They're just too repulsive to each other. But at Integral, you find yourself in that your identity, your consciousness has expanded to a space beyond monoperspectivalism. It's just like all worldviews are allowed. It's just and they're available when needed. And I'm sort of working on figuring that out myself. But at some point, you even want to include the red, the warrior stage, the pre-traditional stages, which are magic and really mythic, and awareness without thought, that kind of consciousness. And that Integral gives us a map to really create the integral human and the Teal Society that you're talking about. So I guess that's not a disagreement after all.
Yeah, no,
I just slice and dice it a little bit.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I really, both now and in the future, I welcome all correction.
Yeah.
And on all education that comes from your side, because it's I value it, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, I actually think that's a marker of Integral, where because you're not monoperspectival anymore, You don't have to, you're just not as defensive. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
plenty defensive about my ideas and all of that, but not like I used to be. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, this is Martin San, producer, editor, and sound designer for the 10,000 Heroes Joe. I just wanted to take a minute to thank our guest for joining us, and also thank you for listening. 10,000 Heroes is brought to you by Momentum Lab. This is the team. Pierre does our artwork, DJ Plainview composes our theme music, and I handle all the editing and sound design. Also, if you like the show, please follow it, rate it, tell all your friends about it, and of course, write to us. That really helps us make the impact we want to make. And now, we are closing down this episode with a word from our main sponsor, who also happens to be our host, Ankur.
And now a message from our sponsor, me again. 10,000 Heroes is brought to you by Momentum Lab. I normally refer to Momentum Lab as a coaching program or a goal accelerator, but it's really more like a master's degree in life. When you join Momentum Lab, we help you get crystal clear on what it is you actually want, who you want to be, what you want to do, and how you want to contribute. And then we get into all the painful details of what has been blocking you this whole time. And then we give you the knowledge, the tools, and the support you need to get there. Sometimes that's a spreadsheet, sometimes it's a mindset hack, sometimes it's a lecture, and sometimes it's a hug. Our only attachment is to your higher self. So, when you're ready to be the next version of yourself, in your business, for your family, or just for your own sense of fulfillment, drop me a line. Bye!